Go ahead, buckaroo, because they won't do a damn thing. When I tell them I'm a trans woman, they'll say okay and they'll leave me alone. You want to know why? Because it's legal in my state as a trans woman to use the bathroom I identify with. Now come at me with another comment, honey bunches of oats.
Bathrooms. The place you go to relieve yourself, perhaps to check your appearance, and if out and about, can serve as a place to reset before re-entering the fray of whatever bar or club you've stumbled into. They are a place of such omnipresence, of such mundanity, that one rarely thinks about them until they need to be used. And yet, it seems as if the discussion on transgenderism centers around them with an uncanny fixation. Historically, bathrooms, or the lack of them, have been used to keep women tied to the home via the urinal leash.
Did you know that one of the first public toilets for women is in Sunderland? These Victorian underground toilets near Seaburn Tram Shelter opened in 1901, reflecting changing times of women being able to spend a penny before enjoying leisure pursuits on the seafront. Public toilets were introduced in the second half of the 19th century, however most were strictly for men. It was thought that Victorian ladies were too modest to go use the facilities when away from the home. One theory is the urinary leash, a cynical ploy to control women's movements. A lack of access to toilets tied women to their homes, putting them on a leash as long as their bladder capacity.
Public bathrooms are not always available, and due to both the clothing type women wore, the physical difficulties of quick urination, and the other needs women have for bathroom usage, many women would therefore have to limit her time out to ensure that she would not be caught out without access to a bathroom, limiting how long she could participate in the public sphere. Because men have external genitalia and are more easily able to aim and use it quickly, there was no such demand for bathrooms, though there certainly should have been simply due to the sanitation issues of outdoor urination in a city. This began to change in the 19th century, particularly about the 1870s, where there was this massive public health movement to improve sewage and drainage and water supply, particularly because of cholera. But the creation of public toilets was still skewed male, as it was seen that men were out and about going to work, and it was considered improper for women to be out on their own or to encourage it. So the great inequality started very early on. Even today, women have difficulties accessing bathrooms, as infrastructure is built under the assumption that equal spaces for men and women are satisfactory. However, this is not true, as men and women have different needs for the bathroom, which reflects how long and how often they need to be used. This topic is well researched in Caroline Criado Pereira's Invisible Women, where she writes, "On the face of it, it may seem fair and equitable to accord male and female public toilets the same amount of floor space, and historically this is the way it has been done. 50-50 division of floor space has even been formalized in plumbing codes. However, if a male toilet has both cubicles and urinals, the number of people who can relieve themselves at once is far higher per square foot of floor space in the male bathroom than in the female bathroom. Suddenly, equal floor space isn't so equal. But even if male and female toilets had an equal number of stalls, the issue wouldn't be resolved because women take up to 2.3 times as long as men to use a toilet. Women make up the majority of the elderly and disabled, two groups that will tend to need more time in the toilet. Women are also more likely to be accompanied by children, as well as disabled and older people. Then there's the 20 to 25% of women of childbearing age who may be on their period at any one time and therefore needing to change a tampon or sanitary pad. Women may also in any case require more trips to the bathroom than men. Pregnancy significantly reduces bladder capacity, and women are 8 times more likely to suffer from urinary tract infections than men, which again increases the frequency with which a toilet visit is needed. In the face of all these anatomical differences, it would surely take a formal, rather than substantive, equality dogmatist to continue to argue that equal floor space between men and women is fair. It gets a lot worse than supposedly equal provision being in fact male-biased. A third of the world's population lack adequate toilet provision at all. According to the UN, 1 in 3 women lack access to safe toilets, and WaterAid reports that girls and women collectively spend 98 billion hours a year finding a safe place to relieve themselves. The lack of adequate toilet provision is a public health problem for both sexes. For example, in India, where 60% of the population does not have access to a toilet, 90% of surface water is contaminated. But the problem is particularly acute for women, in no small part because of the attitude that men can go anywhere, while for women to be seen urinating is shameful. Women get up before dawn and then wait for hours until dusk to go out again in search of a relatively private place to urinate or defecate. And this just isn't a problem in poor countries. Human Rights Watch spoke to young girls working in tobacco fields in America and found that they would refrain from relieving themselves at all during the day, aided by avoiding drinking liquids, which increased their risk of dehydration and heat illness. The UN lists access to sex-separated bathrooms as a necessity for gender equality, especially for access to education, as mixed-sex bathrooms present a danger of sexual assault.
It's just lovely. I had a neighbor confront me for using the women's restroom. I lived here for 4.5 years. Everyone should know that I'm a trans woman.
You know what? I'm just going to say it because I'm afraid that if nobody says anything and stands up for this type of behavior, then scared women and girls are going to be the ones paying the price for this. When are we going to draw the line? Because the idea of a grown-ass man walking in after my daughter to the locker room or to the restroom or whatever horrifies me, and it should for every single parent out there. All this looks like to me is a way to push predatory boundaries. Biological women's right to privacy is being challenged by this ideology, and society is trying to become so inclusive, all while simultaneously excluding and disregarding the real fears and boundaries that biological women have.
Without access to a safe space to use the bathroom, many women and girls choose to simply not participate in public life. Sex-separated bathrooms have always been the norm due to this understanding of the danger of mixed-sex spaces. This is quite simply because men commit the majority of sexual assaults and women are the primary victims. Although there is no door security at the doors of public bathrooms, the social pressure helps prevent men from entering these spaces. If a man enters the women's bathroom, it alerts those within they may be in danger. This is the commonly accepted fact and an unquestioned aspect of public life until recently, when the concept of gender identity became a public concern. Suddenly, men who identified as women were asking for entry to women's bathrooms as a matter of validation and required to treat their dysphoria which caused them to wish to be a woman. Or at least, that was the common belief in the days when gender dysphoria was still viewed as a mental illness. Today, it is viewed more as a lifestyle choice, as simple to cast on or off or change as a style of clothing.
Hi, I'm gonna make a quick request. If you believe this, unfollow me. Just unfollow me. I've been seeing a pretty large uptick of kind of transmedicalist comments on my posts recently, and I want to say that I don't support that. I do not support transmedicalism. If you believe in transmedicalism, that you need dysphoria or surgeries or hormones to be trans, to be valid as a trans person, don't follow me. Unfollow me. I don't want you here.
In the early days of trans activism, the most common accommodations asked for were using chosen pronouns and polite lying. Later on, those same men wanted access to the bathroom because they claimed that they are women, and so of course they should use the women's bathroom.
I just don't understand this whole debate about the restroom and being trans, right? When I go in public and I have to use the bathroom, I go into the women's bathroom because I'm a trans woman. Now, the moment that somebody will ever come up to me and ask me to see my identification to verify that I'm a male or female, they're going to gag because my ID says a female on it. They're going to ask me to pull my pants down so they can reveal my genitalia. I'm so confused what the argument is about bathrooms. If you are a trans woman, you go into the women's bathroom, and if a bitch try you, you pull out your ID and says, "Ma'am, what's the conversation?" Because I'm waiting for these girls in the comments who got all these balls on the top. They be on the keyboard. I'm waiting for somebody to say to me, "Chanel, you can't be in here." So I can say, "Well, girl, what authority is invested in you to remove me? Because if you feel froggy, then jump. Remove me."
While many women support the validation of men over safety, others have pushed back. After all, why should women have to give up their safety and comfort for men to feel better? Much of the transgender debate has gotten tied up in this specific discussion, as it is one of the most visible examples of the encroachment of women's spaces and the one that crosses the line to objectionable for most moderate and conservative people.
You do realize that keeping trans women out of the women's restroom will not keep women safe. Cisgendered men, mostly white, will do whatever they want regardless. Women would not get assaulted in parks otherwise. And predators don't have to dress as a woman to assault somebody in the bathroom. They'll just open up the door and go in. So again, keeping us out of the women's restroom will not keep you or anybody else any safer.
It is also a knife-point line for many liberals who see the concession of single-sex spaces, particularly bathrooms, to be an easy sacrifice at the altar of gender ideology. However, it is important to note that the argument about bathrooms is nothing more than a distraction. Entry into bathrooms is akin to giving an inch, which is then used to take a mile, and has over time led to the widespread invasion of women's spaces by men, and the trivialization of that issue with the gender activism movement. This isn't just about who uses the bathroom and where, but rather over the impact of allowing anyone to identify as a woman and to access our spaces, take our roles in government and organizations, and to take prizes and positions earmarked for women in a world created around men.
Welcome to Tough TikTok, boys. Okay, let me just shut this down. First of all, who said anything about giving up space? You're sharing your space with other women. You're not giving anything up. Secondly, again, this is textbook transphobia. Although yes, trans women aren't cis women, they are still women. You're all hot and bothered because you think they are still men. That's the problem. That's transphobia. Yes, those spaces were there to protect women. All women. Cis women. Trans women. And then they go on to say it's prevalent in the black community. Wait, what are you on about? Where are you now going off into a tangent? Where are you going? For the record, I am not discounting the fact that women still go through oppression today. I am not invalidating the fact that terrible things happen to women in places like bathrooms and stuff like that. I understand that. I'm well aware of that and I strive to educate myself. However, it doesn't make an excuse for you to be transphobic. Again, stop with this misandrist shit. Anyone can speak on any topic that they want to, as long as 1, they know what they're talking about, and 2, they're not offensive. There you go. You can talk on whatever you want to talk on, as long as you know what you're talking about and you're not being offensive. Yes, there are people sometimes which may have different opinions to yours or different takes on certain topics. Just because I'm a man doesn't mean that I am invalid of talking on something like this. And it doesn't mean that I sympathise and empathise with women on certain things like this. So you need to cut that shit out. And yes, finally, going through all your comments. Yes, the Karen White situation is horrible. I'm no way defending that. That is horrible. Not only is that incredibly dangerous to cis women, it's also a slap in the face to trans women. But it's funny how the topic of sexual assault and non-consensual things happen around trans women. Where's that same energy for cis women who do that to other women? Because there are plenty of women who do that stuff and nothing gets said. So in summary, yes, I understand why you're upset. I understand why you have some concerns. And in no way, shape or form am I trying to invalidate them. However, it does not excuse your transphobia. And also, no one likes a misandrist. Take care.
For example, the debate on sports is often minimized due to a lack of perceived interest in female sports. Women have long been kept out of competing in sports. In the second modern Olympics in the year 1900, women competed for the first time, but numbered only 22 out of a total of 997 athletes. In 1972, over 1,000 female athletes competed in the Olympics, and numbers have steadily risen as women were allowed to compete and be recognized in all levels of sports. Sex segregation has been essential in allowing this to occur, as there are obvious and measurable differences in male and female bodies, down to the individual cell. I discussed this in depth in my video, Invasion of the Mediocre Male Athlete, which I will link in the description down below. But quite simply, the inclusion of males in female sports categories serves to hide the exemplary athleticism of the girls and women competing. Mediocre males can beat incredible women simply due to having bodily differences, therefore stealing victories, opportunities, and scholarships from women who work hard for them.
No one has asked us how we felt. We exist to validate a male's identity. But the Ivy League, Leah Thomas's teammates, actually, when they were concerned about the locker room situation and they sent an email to the Ivy League and the NCAA, their response was, here are some counseling resources you should seek if you feel comfortable seeing male genitalia in your locker room. And then they were referred to the LGBTQ Education Center to educate themselves on the oppression that these athletes are dealing with. So no one within the NCAA is willing to acknowledge us, our feelings, our safety, our privacy. I've really tried. I feel like it's really only happened like the past couple weeks where I like get emotional talking about like the locker room scene, because it is just so wild that you can turn around and see a 6'4" biological man pull his pants down watching you undress, and no one is willing to stick up for you.
Trans-identified males are now being asked to speak on behalf of women, to detail what girlhood, an experience they will never have, means. They are hired as brand ambassadors to sell period products, another experience they will never have. Opportunities that women would never receive, such as being able to talk to the president, are being gifted to them despite having no particular merit besides a high follower count. It is the silencing of women in the midwifery field, the promotion of stereotypes as defining womanhood, the ignorance of female oppression. All of these things stem from the opening of female bathrooms to males because it implicitly supports the idea that men can transition to women, that brain sex is real, and that those who identify with stereotypes of femininity and womanhood are in fact women. It should speak for itself that the fixation on bathrooms, places to relieve oneself or change clothes, is where trans activism fixates instead of on issues such as having access to housing and jobs. Women have not agreed as a class to allow men into our spaces. Some women may be okay with this, but just as some black individuals may reclaim slurs individually, they do not speak for everyone. The creation of compromises such as gender-neutral single stalls, separate wings of male prisons, and third sports categories are not punishments nor are they dehumanizing. They are accommodations for dysphoria that seek to balance the comfort and safety of trans individuals with the rights and comfort of women. Anyone who disagrees is either willfully ignorant of the potential danger of men and women's spaces pose, particularly as the majority of trans women will not receive bottom surgery, or else prioritizes the feelings of men over the safety of the female population. These men are not asking for compassion, but rather for submission. But I suppose that's nothing new. This, dear viewers, is where we part. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, leave them down below. Let me know what you think about this topic. I feel like some of these topics are very round robin. We come back to a lot of them very often because this is very akin to having a kindergartner in a college setting, right? We're having a lecture and the kindergartner keeps raising his hand and asking you to define the simplest of terms. Why is the color the sky blue? Tell me what are clouds made of? And while you're trying to discuss higher level topics, you can't ever go higher level because you have that kindergartner fixated on talking about the same three small things that all the adults in the room already know the answers to. And that's kind of where feminism is. I don't want to talk about these topics all the time. Trust me, I don't. And I try to diversify as best I can. But the issue is so much of Western feminism is kind of attached to these topics as a result of everyone else being fixated on what is a woman. Well, we learned that long time ago, and I don't understand why we still need to keep talking about it. Except that I think they kind of revel in their own ignorance. If you guys have any ideas you want me to bring up or discuss, especially social media figures. I don't like using social media. I use TikTok literally just to find little videos for these. I don't use any of these things regularly. I don't use anything besides Tumblr, so I feel like I miss out on a lot of trends. Please feel free to send them my way, as well as any news stories, etc. that you think would be interesting to talk about. As stated in my previous video, we're doing a little thing where at the end of each video, if you listen to the end, I'll give you a little code word, and if you are the first person to type it in the comment section, I can send you a postcard. So this week's topic is creme brulee. Whoever comments it first is the one who wins. I mean, as long as you're willing on sharing your address. But yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.